Good morning, everybody. I welcome all councillors and members of the public to the latest meeting of the Northamptonshire Executive, including all those watching the meeting via live stream on YouTube. Members are reminded to keep your microphones muted unless invited to speak. Due to officer availability, I have taken the decision to move item 16, the draft housing fire safety policy, up the agenda to directly follow Item 5, the Corporate Plan 2025-2029. It being Remembrance Day today, we will be pausing proceedings just before 11 a.m. in order to observe the last post, followed by a 2-minute silence in honour of all those who gave their lives in service during times of war, and those who continue to serve for peace and freedom. Following this mark of remembrance, we will continue with the order of business. Thank you. So we come to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you very much, Chair. We have 2 this morning, both officers. David Watts, Executive Director of Adults Health Partnerships and Housing, and John Morley, Executive Director of Strategy and Change. Thank you very much.
Everybody else seems to be present. Thank you for that. So we move then to agenda item 2, the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of October 2025. The minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of October are set out on pages 5 to 18 of the agenda pack. Are there any comments in respect of their accuracy? I see no comments. Please may I have a mover and seconder to approve the minutes. Councillor Harrington to move, Councillor Bennyworth to second. Please may I have a show for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll sign these now and pass them over. Thank you very much. So now we move to agenda item 3, which is members' declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members? That's fine. With 17 items, we're moving on quite well. Thank you. Agenda item 4, notifications of requests to address the meeting. We have received requests to speak on agenda items 5, 6, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. Speakers will be invited to address the executive in turn at the appropriate point. In accordance with part 2, paragraph 8.12 of the Constitution, speakers are reminded that participation at executive is limited to statements only, which may be taken into account following officer representation of the report and during member debate. I won't detail all the speakers, but we'll come to them in time. So now we move on to agenda item 5, which is the Corporate Plan 2025 to 2029. I would like to invite Councillor Trevor Conway to address the meeting. Councillor Conway, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity today to show my absolute support for our new corporate plan, a blueprint for our shared future that is bold, inclusive, and determined to make our area a better place to live, work, and thrive. We live in a time of change, changing demographics, changing communities, changing expectations. Against that backdrop, this policy presents not just incremental tweaks, but a clear, long-term vision built around 4 key themes: family, community, prosperity, and smarter, faster, fairer public services. Firstly, under the heading of family, the policy commits to supporting children, families, and vulnerable residents so that everyone has the chance to flourish. That means improved early years services, better support for parents, protection for the most vulnerable, and creating the conditions so our young people get the very best start. By investing here, we secure healthier, happier households, which ultimately makes for a stronger community. Secondly, the theme of community recognises that our towns, villages and neighbourhoods are only as strong as the connections between them. The policy pledges to build safer, stronger and more connected communities. What this means in practice is better infrastructure, safer streets, well-maintained public spaces, more opportunities for residents to shape the places they call home. When people feel safe, engaged and connected, we all benefit. Crime goes down, civic pride goes up, and we invest in momentum rather than maintenance. Thirdly, the policy's focus on prosperity is critical. It acknowledges that we must drive economic growth, housing and infrastructure so that local people get local opportunities. We are committing to ensuring there is enough quality housing, improved transport and viable employment for people in the area. This means when people think about the future, they don't have to leave the area to find work or affordable housing. The opportunities come to us. It also means a thriving local
30
economy,
seconds.
benefiting business workers and residents alike. Finally, the theme of smarter, faster, fairer public services shows a commitment to improving service delivery and accessibility so that our council works not just for people, but with people.
Thank you very much, Councillor Conway. Thank you. I'd like to now invite John Padwick to address the meeting. John, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors. We all want safer communities, but I need to raise a serious concern. In the corporate plan, the only crime mentioned explicitly is environmental crime and antisocial behaviour. That matters, no argument. But as things stand, there's no reference whatsoever to the rise in violence against women, no recognition of the increase in town centre intimidation, no mention of knife crime, and nothing about how communities are experiencing fear in public spaces. And here's the issue. This council unanimously passed a resolution in December 2024 that councillors, just like town and parish members, should receive regular local crime updates. That's not been delivered. Residents bring matters to councillors because they trust them and because they are visible and reachable. If they're not being updated, the public are being let down. While we're talking about community safety, we need to be honest. Antisocial behaviour reports don't always go anywhere. Residents report it to councillors because they feel unheard. If those reports vanish into a black hole, confidence collapses. If you want to tackle ASB seriously, you've got to fix the communication chain, not lecture people to report differently. Now, on to SEND. The corporate plan talks about supporting families, and that's good. But we all know the reality. Families are already at breaking point. We have children waiting months or years for assessments and placements. Early intervention isn't a slogan. It needs staffing, funding, timelines, and accountability. Same goes for housing. This plan talks about shaping communities, but if we don't provide secure, affordable homes, we're not shaping communities, we're hollowing them out. We have families stuck in temporary accommodation, carers moving between unstable tenancies, and young people priced out before they've even begun. The council needs a genuine commitment to proper SEND funding, proper housing partnership work, real crime reporting transparency, and action against ASB that doesn't stop at litter fines. But not an approach that pretends a fly-tipping crackdown alone is a crime strategy, or that families can build resilience while waiting a year for SEND support, or that communities feel safe when councillors are kept in the dark. Our residents deserve better than slogans. They deserve delivery, accountability and communication. And we'll keep pushing for exactly that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. I would now like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your address.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the Executive for attending our scrutiny meetings. It really is important that that happens and you get to hear what scrutiny is saying firsthand. I'd also like to thank corporate scrutiny colleagues for the diligent and thoughtful debates that we're having and will continue to have. I'm looking forward to seeing the principles in the corporate plan and the themes involved delivered for all of our communities. I'm also looking forward to the corporate plan guiding our decision making over the next 4 years, and I commend it and agree with the principles of it, as well as it being a living document. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hakewell. I would now like to introduce this report. Mr. Holloway, are you speaking on this?
Chair, I can briefly say a few words. I'm very conscious of the fact that members of the Executive will be keen to get into the policy detail of the report. But basically, the report we've got here today is the outcome of a consultation process and a process of developing a set of priorities for the Council. So the report's been through Corporate Scrutiny Committee, as we've heard one of our speakers mention, so the appendix to the report, the corporate plan, its next passage will be to go to full Council in December. So really the purpose of the report today is to endorse the report so that it can go to full Council to be approved. What the report does do is it does highlight the consultation feedback that's been received, so there was strong public support for the corporate plan, but also it does outline the feedback, the really important feedback from the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, and I think a lot of that feedback can be taken on board, subject to Executive's approval, as members go forward with the corporate plan into the sort of the new calendar year, obviously subject to approval. Chair, I wasn't going to add much more to it than that. I think it's just really important that members can have their say, so thank you.
Thank you for that, and I would like to also thank you and your team for delivering this corporate plan in the first 6 months of this new administration. We went out to the public, we listened to the public, and we've delivered this plan. I'd now like to open it up to debate for members to discuss. Over to you, Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can hear that. I'm very supportive of this corporate plan, which I feel clearly sets out what our priorities are over the next 4 years. In terms of adult social care and health partnerships, the plan before us here today has a focus on prevention and promoting independence. It commits us to reshaping adult social care services to prioritise prevention, early intervention and personalised support, reducing reliance on formal care. There is a clear commitment to the expansion of reablement and community support, where services will be expanded to help people remain in their own homes, something that's very important, promoting dignity and independence. The plan clearly sets out the need to modernise care provision, for example, ensuring that residential and nursing care meets the needs of the ageing population. The plan also recognises the vital role of carers, pledging better support, including access to respite care and financial advice. Importantly, the corporate plan places strong emphasis on partnership working, and in particular on collaboration with the NHS, voluntary community and social enterprise sector, as well as other key partners, to deliver integrated care and community-based solutions. There is a commitment to invest in community networks with the aim of strengthening informal support networks and reduce crisis-driven care through early intervention and local capacity building. Importantly, the plan is outcome-focused. It's clear that success will be measured by more people living independently, healthier communities, and reduced demand for high-cost care. I'm delighted to second this, Chair.
Thank you very much. Other members? Councillor Bennyworth.
Thank you, Chair. I fully endorse this corporate plan and commend the extensive consultation that has shaped it. I believe that the 4 priority themes resonate strongly with the needs of our residents, I particularly welcome its emphasis on supporting care-experienced young people and carers, tackling health inequalities, encouraging active and healthy lifestyles across NNC, investing in our housing stock and community infrastructure, and improving digital inclusion whilst also maintaining access to face-to-face services for those who want it. In my view, this plan is not just aspirational. As Councillor MacDonald said, it's outcome-focused and it's deliverable. It links to our wider Big 50 strategy, and I look forward to its passage through to full council in December. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Other members wish to speak? Councillor Kirk-Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. If I can say something about the development of the plan first. I think we've done this very carefully, very systematically. I feel like we've listened to the concerns of local residents and businesses. From a regulatory services perspective, and that's my area, I feel this is very, very helpful. We're taking a tougher stance on crime and antisocial behaviour in particular. The plan very firmly commits us to enforcement against environmental crime, fly tipping and graffiti are right up there as public nuisances. The plan, from my perspective, supports clean, safe neighbourhoods through proactive regulation, which I think is really important. There's also quite a clear focus on trading standards. Now, that's something that hasn't appeared in a corporate plan before, and I feel that it's really important now. We need to be seen to, and we need to protect our residents, and actually our legitimate business as well. We need to enforce fair trading, we need to tackle rogue traders, and we need to remove unsafe products from sale. This also pledges really, really strong action against rogue landlords, in particular unlicensed HMOs, which I know are becoming an increasingly serious problem throughout most of our communities. I feel also that that's going to lead to an improvement in housing standards and safer rental homes as well. Just picking up on something one of our speakers, Councillor Hakewill, said, the living document element of this is really important too. It's focused on feedback that we receive from our communities. It sets our priorities accordingly. But as things change, we can redevelop it and weave in the new priorities. And I think that's one of the key aspects of this document. And you should be looking at this document now, and it won't be the same in 4 years' time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very much so. A moving document. Councillor Elizabeth Wright.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to speak in support of the corporate plan, particularly as it places families, children's and communities at the very heart of our vision for Northamptonshire. As Executive Member for Children, Education and Families, I see daily the importance of joined up long-term planning that puts families first. This plan does exactly that. Whether it's in early years, education, safeguarding or the wider wraparound support that enables families to thrive, I especially welcome the emphasis on prevention and early intervention, as well as the clear ambition to reduce inequalities and raise aspirations for all, particularly for our most vulnerable children and young people. In particular, we are committed to working as effective corporate parents to enhance our life chances and well-being for children in care and care-experienced young people. On that note, I would like to thank Councillor Simon Fairhall for his feedback, which helped strengthen the commitment within the plan. We also outline a clear pledge to deliver targeted support for children with SEND needs and their families, ensuring inclusive and accessible services. The plan also sets out the commitment for the Council to work closely with schools, early year providers and the Children's Trust to improve educational outcomes and ensure every child has the best start in life. I think we all agree that is a very worthy commitment and something that is vitally important. But to truly deliver on these promises, we must ensure that the voices of children and young people are not only heard, but actively shape the way we deliver services. As this plan develops and comes to life across the council, I want us to keep listening to our young people, not just through formal consultations, but in schools, youth groups and community spaces where they will feel seen and safe to speak. The corporate plan also highlights the importance of strong local communities. Families don't exist in isolation. They grow and flourish when communities are supported to connect, care and contribute. That's why this plan's commitment to working with our communities, not just for them, is so important. So I'm proud to support the direction this corporate plan sets out, and I commend it to the executive.
Thank you very much for that. Other members? Councillor Gregory Wilcox.
Clearly, community is a very important focus of this plan, so much so that there's a whole section dedicated to it. I'm not going to go through it all in detail, but there are a few key priorities and commitments that I want to highlight. One, the plan sets out a commitment to work with towns, villages and rural communities to shape their local needs through neighbourhood plans and community-led initiatives, enhancing local decision-making and pride in the local area where people live. 2, as stated elsewhere, the plan pledges robust action on antisocial behaviour and environmental crime, and that includes crime in rural as well as in urban areas. And I would like to communicate more with the police, personally as well, to be more active on all crime, more visual and more proactive, and give more residents more support and a feeling of safety. Moving on, there are clear commitments set out in important areas such as improving rural transport, which is vital, broadband and access to services to reduce isolation in rural areas. The plan supports sustainable tourism growth through partnerships and promotion of heritage and cultural events, and improves town centres and visitor infrastructure. Libraries, leisure facilities and community centres are recognised as central to local life, with commitments to maintain and improve them as hubs for well-being, learning and connection. Importantly, the plan aims to reduce rural isolation through better transport, broadband and access to services, ensuring rural communities are equally supported in health, education and their connectivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Wilcox. Councillor Chris McGiffin.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Can I say, first of all, I absolutely endorse this plan. When I first picked up my portfolio 6 months ago, I had some ideas of what my priorities ought to be. We asked our residents, and our residents have told us. And happily, they form precisely the sort of intentions that I have learned we need. So, the condition of our roads and pavements obviously is a top priority. Our residents have told us this. The plan sets out clear ambitions for improved road maintenance, and it prioritises faster pothole repairs, and there has been substantial work done with our contractor to move this along. And the results I'm happy to publish thereafter are substantially better year on year and from when I took up the post originally. Commitments included for investment in smarter street lighting and safer junctions to enhance safety and efficiency, and has been said a number of times this morning by Councillor Conway and Wilcox at least. It includes commitments to improve public transport, cycling and walking routes, and to support sustainable, accessible travel. Connected communities lies at the heart of this plan. Value for money gets a clear focus. There is a commitment to in the plan to focus on ensuring the highways contractor delivers the maximum value. I'm working with the contractors on their key performance indicators, on our service level agreement, and what is possible based upon improvements in material technology and technique. It is, of course, essential that we're very honest about what we can achieve in terms of improvements to our roads. I have mentioned before in this chamber that the amount of funding available versus the demand of this work is a long way apart. We'll continue to be honest about that, and we'll continue to focus on our roads and highways, and that will be our fundamental focus. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to wholeheartedly endorse our corporate plan. I think it's an amazing living document. In terms of planning and economic growth, the plan commits to delivering a clear local plan that really does balance housing, economic development and environmental protection, along with stronger design standards and community input via our neighbourhood plans, which we'll see later on in our agenda. There is a very clear focus on our town centres and their regeneration, which actually is quite imperative given how businesses are affected these days, especially with all the online ordering that people do. So our business teams are absolutely amazing in how they're supporting our town centres, and this plan supports that, and it's looking at reshaping town centres, improving their offer and aligning parking strategies, which is imperative. So that we boost the football and indeed our tourism. And you only have to look around our area to see how well our tourism is and how well cared for our Arthur is. If you go to Chester House Estate, it's just incredible. The plan also sets out clear aspirations for business and investment support. Through delivery of this corporate plan, the council will attract investment and is attracting investment with small and medium-sized enterprises, including farming and food sections, and maximise the opportunities available from major regional developments like Universal Studios, dare I say. The plan puts an emphasis on unblocking brownfield sites for regeneration and sustainable growth, and I think that's really important, that it is about sustainable growth, not only of our businesses and, just our communities are able to live, work and play in an amazing county, that we are going to be the best council in the whole of this country, and this corporate plan will help us do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Hara. There's nothing like aiming high, is there? Councillor Ken Harrington.
Yes, Chair. There's not a great deal I can add, really, because I think it's mainly all been said. Wonderful. Just one thing I can add to that. Fly tipping is my pet hate, and we are waging war on you. So those that fly tip, be warned. But overall, I fully endorse the corporate plan, and I would say that the officers have worked miracles in getting this ready for us. Thank you very much indeed to them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Graham Cheatley, nice to see you back, sir.
Thank you. Morning all. There is, of course, a very important relationship between this corporate plan and the council's budget. It stands to reason that there needs to be the financial and people resources to deliver the ambitions set out within this plan. However, the corporate plan itself plays an important role in shaping demand and the cost of services, and also the efficiency and effectiveness of council services. So there is in effect a circular relationship between the council's priorities and its budget. There are a number of important commitments set out within this plan that aim to ensure that the council is financially sustainable, very important. The plans make it clear that we will prioritise living within our means. The council will only spend what it can afford, focusing on financial sustainability and value for money. The plan prioritises smarter investment, where resources will be prioritised for prevention and early intervention initiatives that deliver long-term savings and better outcomes. The plan includes efforts to maximise income through securing more government funding, attract investment and generate income from services where appropriate. There is a clear focus on delivering efficiency through innovation with emphasis on using technology, automation and data to improve service delivery, reduce costs and enhance customer experience. And last, and certainly not least, the plan promotes collaborative working with a commitment where appropriate to share resources and data with partners like the NHS and the police to maximise public sector value and impact. I endorse the plan.
Thank you very much for that. So I'll wind up and finish, if I may. So thank you, members, for your feedback. I'm proud of this plan. This is really exciting times for our council, our residents and our place. Our corporate plan for 2025 to 2029 is a bold and forward-looking strategy that sets out our shared vision for Northamptonshire over the next 4 years. The corporate plan reflects what matters most to our residents, supporting people to live well, creating safe and thriving neighbourhoods, and building a resilient local economy that works for everyone. The plan includes clear commitments on improving roads and highways, on working with partners to tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, improving housing provision in the area, and promoting economic development and job creation. And this is a plan that puts prevention and early support at the heart of everything we do. Whether it's helping children get the best start in life, supporting older people to live independently and providing them with the dignity they deserve, tackling health inequalities, or investing in our roads and town centres, this is about delivering smarter, faster and fairer public services for all. The plan aims to make every pound count, working in partnership and ensuring that Northamptonshire is a place where people feel proud to live, work and grow. We have recently recruited to an integral role that will help us deliver and drive forward our corporate plan priorities. I'm excited to share that after an incredible 71 applications, we appointed Libby Caulfield to the role of Director of Transformation and Strategy. The creation of this role was a key recommendation of the team that undertook the peer challenge some months ago, and it is such an important milestone for us as we continue to grow and evolve as a council. The role of Director of Transformation and Strategy will lead the way in shaping our long-term direction and driving transformation and innovation across this organisation. Libby will oversee our transformation programme, corporate planning and performance, helping us modernise services, make the most of technology and data, and ensure everything we do is joined up and focused on improving outcomes for our residents. Libby joins us from Empower, where she worked closely with councils and public sector partners across the county to deliver large-scale change and improvement programmes. She brings a wealth of experience in transformation, innovation and organisational design, as well as a deep understanding of what it takes to deliver lasting improvements in local government. I can't wait to welcome Libby to the council. I commend this plan to the executive and endorse it for consideration at full council in December, where it will be considered for formal adoption. I look forward to working together with members, officers and partners to turn its commitments into real positive change for our residents. Thank you. Do I see a seconder?
I second this report, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, well, the recommendations are shown on page 21 of the agenda pack. I have moved, Councillor Eddie MacDonald to second. Can I have a show of those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So now we move or jump to agenda item 16, the draft housing fire safety policy. I'd like to invite Councillor Trevor Conway to address the meeting as chair of the Place and Environmental Scrutiny Committee. Trevor, as usual, you do not have. You can speak as you see fit, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I am pleased to speak in strong support of this draft housing fire safety policy, a policy that reflects our ongoing commitment to resident safety, responsible asset management and proactive governance. Fire safety is not just a matter of compliance, it is a moral and operational responsibility. National inquiries have shown the tragic consequences when systems and standards fall short. This policy ensures that Northamptonshire takes a leadership role embedding prevention, accountability and clarity throughout our housing portfolio. The draft policy strengthens inspection regimes, aligns fully with current building and fire safety legislation and clearly sets out roles, responsibilities and reporting lines. It also promotes greater resident engagement, ensuring tenants understand fire safety measures and the importance of maintaining safe communal spaces. A specific area the policy addresses, which deserves emphasis, is the storage and charging of mobility scooters and other such items in communal areas. We know that for many residents, these scooters are vital for independence and quality of life. However, when stored or charged in shared corridors or entrance halls, they can obstruct escape routes and pose significant safety risks. The policy therefore introduces clear guidance and alternative provision, such as designated storage areas and safe charging facilities to balance independence with the safety of all residents. This approach exemplifies the spirit of the policy: practical, evidence-led and compassionate. It recognises individual needs while ensuring collective safety. By adopting this policy, we not only meet our statutory duties, but also strengthen public confidence and protect our housing assets. It represents good governance, sound investment, and above all, care for the people we serve. My only negative is that as a unitary council that formed in 2021, it has taken more than 4 years to bring something that is so vital to the safety of our residents to the forefront. All our policies should be the same across the board for all of our residents, no matter where they live. Chair, I therefore urge members to endorse this policy and support its implementation as a cornerstone of our wider housing and community safety strategy. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Conway, and thanks for all you do as Chair of the Place and Environment Scrutiny Committee. I would now like to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you're most welcome. You have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. This has an impact on me myself because I am a mobility scooter user. I went to the corporate scrutiny where this was discussed and brought a few things there. I was quite heartened when I heard that they would be looking at the Fire Chief Council's guidance on this. So members, the National Fire Chief Council's own mobility scooter guidance is clear. This isn't about banning scooters, it's about balancing safety with independence. The document recognises that mobility scooters are a lifeline for many older, less mobile residents. Sometimes their only means of leaving their home or accessing the wider community. For some, it's a lifestyle choice. For others, it's the difference between isolation and independence. But with that freedom comes fire risk. Temperatures on scooter fire can hit 375 within 3 minutes and over 55 degrees centigrade within 8. 2 scooters together can release more than 2.5 megawatts of heat, enough to make escape routes completely impossible. It's no mean threat, and the statistics prove it. Most incidents involve arson, and every single one can turn deadly within minutes. That's why the National Fire Chief Council guidance insists on proportionate risk-based policies, not blanket bans. It specifically says policies must act as an enabler to promote independence, not restrict it. It calls on landlords to consider the individual needs of tenants and to make a reasonable adjustment under the Equalities Act 2010. In plain English, we can't just shove all the scooters outside and pretend the problem is solved. Some residents physically can't walk 6 metres to a shed in the rain, and forcing them to do so might solve a fire
30
risk
seconds, Lynn.
whilst creating a welfare one. Fire safety and human dignity must coexist. So, If anyone but still believes in total sterile environment, whether it's corridors or communities, let's remember this. On Britain's Road last year, there were over 1,700 fatal accidents. If we applied the same logic and banned everything with wheels,
thank you very much.
we might cut those too, but none of us would ever get home.
Thank you very much for that, Lynn, for your time. I'd now like to invite Yvonne Coleman-Thomas, Assistant Director of Strategic Housing Development and Property Services, to introduce this report. Over to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to thank Ms Buckingham for representation and also for Councillor Conway, who I think probably stole my thunder in terms of the presentation there. But I'm absolutely delighted to present the fire safety policy to you today. Just as a correction to Councillor Conway, the Council has always had a council fire policy. This is an enhanced policy based on important new legislation. So I want to make sure that we understand that the previous administration and this administration has done and is doing everything it can to keep our residents safe. I do note your comments around mobility scooters, but you also mentioned the high risk that mobility scooters present to us if they do unfortunately go up in flames. And we do know that this comes to us on the back of Grenfell, where we saw sadly considerable loss of life. I would also like to make clear that we're not banning mobility scooters. We are trying to find that balance to keep independence and to keep all of our residents safe. So it is a balance, and we know it is a difficult one. And for the housing service, where we are aware of residents who have additional needs, we will be having one-on-one meetings with those individual residents so that we can understand how we can support them. And it may well be that that mobility scooter can actually go into the property. And also the mobility scooter will be there. It's for a small period of time. It's overnight, it's while it's charging. So it is not in all cases going to impact somebody's ability to keep themselves mobile and have connections with their community. But it is that community that we have a responsibility to. By keeping our areas safe and sterile, it can make the difference of life or death in an emergency situation. And I will repeat that, colleagues. It can make the difference between life and death in an emergency situation. And so while I recognise for some areas and some moments it may be inconvenient, but the headline for us will not be about inconvenience. It will be around if we did not utilise the moral responsibility, the legislative responsibility, and the compliance responsibility to do all that we can in proportion and under legislation to keep all of our residents safe. In the prospect of a fire, when it is frightening and it is confusing, people don't always go up a flight of stairs or down a flight of stairs. There is the element of panic. We need to ensure that there aren't items in the way that can become a trip hazard. A fall on the floor could be the difference of those minutes you need in terms of getting back onto your feet and exiting the building. But it can also be the difference in time that it takes our very brave emergency services personnel to come into that building and find you. So this is an enhancement. It's to keep you all safe. It is to respect everybody's rights, individuality. We will be providing that support. And I do believe, like all local authorities across the United Kingdom, across the world in fact, that we have that responsibility. We undertake considerable amounts of work around fire safety, so we have a very strong compliance. We are 100% at compliance in completing our fire risk assessments. We also undertake annual inspections on smoke alarms and individual smoke alarms that we have, and we also work with our leaseholders to make sure that they are working to be compliant, because often sometimes they can rent out their properties. We won't always have access to that. But it is a policy I fundamentally support, and I'm proud to present that we as a local authority prior and continue to do all that we can to keep our residents safe and understand their personal, individual aspects while we do it. but a momentary inconvenience of perhaps asking someone to keep that mobility scooter in place has to be balanced with our responsibility to keep all of our residents safe, your families, your visitors, our contractors, and those in around the immediate area. If a building in its entirety goes up, it presents risk to the wider community also. So thank you for your time in terms of the comments that I have. I have no further comments on our policy chair, other than to say I'm proud to present this policy to the board today. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There's very little I can add. So I'd now like to invite member debate from the floor. Councillor Brian Benworth, who is the chair of our planning improvement, our housing improvement board. You've got many titles, but I can't throw another one at you, I'm afraid. Yet.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the many titles, I must say. Chair, I am happy to second the draft housing fire safety policy. For me, this is a vital step in ensuring consistency of approach and clarity regarding the safety and well-being of our tenants and residents. The policy sets out clear responsibilities both for the council and tenants, and it ensures compliance with the relevant fire safety and building legislation. I welcome the proactive approach to risk assessment, tenant engagement, and the use of technology to monitor and manage fire safety across our housing stock. The emphasis on training, communication and partnership working with the fire services is commendable, and it will help build trust and fire safety resilience across our housing stock. I'm also delighted that our residents and our scrutiny committee have had valuable input into the process of developing this draft policy, and I think that's very important. Finally, Chair, in my view, this policy is not about compliance necessarily, it's about leadership in housing safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members wish to speak? Well, we have a proposer, which is Councillor Brian Benworth, for the report. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ken Harrington. The recommendations are set out on page 618 of the agenda pack. They have been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show of those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I will start. Yes. We're looking very closely at the time, but I'm going to make a start on agenda item 6, which is the Finance and Performance Report, Q2. Councillor Cheatley will present this report, but first I'd like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting. Councillor Hakewell, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I'm going to have that tattooed on my arm, maximum 3 minutes. My wife would appreciate it as well. Chairman, it is clear that there are significant financial challenges across all councils, including Northamptonshire. I hope that the Executive will continue to lobby government directly and through the Local Government Association for a fairer funding settlement for Northamptonshire. In the meantime, corporate scrutiny is able and willing to support the analysis of our local budgets up to and after the setting of the council tax in February next year. I encourage the Executive to reach out to our scrutiny committees, corporate scrutiny in particular on finance, and to use our knowledge and scrutiny skills in delivering the best possible budget for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hakewell. I'd now like to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chair, members, the Q2 report makes one thing brutally clear. Northamptonshire is running hot. A 15.3 million general fund overspend, contingency already dipped into, and demand-led budgets spiralling. It's not a blip, it's a structural signal. We've been here before. The question is whether we've learned anything. Right now, we're describing the symptoms, not treating the condition. Seeking efficiencies isn't a strategy, it's a holding line. We need a credible, time-bound recovery plan showing which directorates will deliver recurring base savings, not one-offs or vacancy freezes that quietly unwind next year. The report claims savings deliverability is assessed, yet there is no RAG rating, no slippage analysis, no replacement plan for falling savings. Without that transparency, scrutiny, and the public are flying blind. On reserves, we've already pulled 511,000 for pay-in, 150,000 for adult care transformation. That's mid-year contingency used before winter pressures even bite. We need to know what balance actually remains usable. What are the trigger points for a formal recovery notice if this trajectory continues? Capital performance is the same story, 24.4 million reprofiled, underspends, masking delay. Where's the project level accountability? Which communities are waiting longer for the benefits those schemes were meant to deliver? And whilst performance data is integrated, it still doesn't drive decisions. The National Audit Office has been explicit. Every KPI should link to cost, outcomes and risk. Until we can see that matrix, this isn't performance management, it's performance reporting. Members, this is the moment to move from firefighting to foresight. We need a transparent published savings RAG dashboard, a demand management plan for adult social care, children and transport pressures, and a reserve recovery path aligned to real medium-term financial strategy. Not a wish list. Without these, this report won't be about overspend, it'll be about intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Lynn. Thank you. I would now like to invite Claire Edwards, Executive Director of Finance, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to outline the expected position for the financial year end 25-26 in relation to the General Fund, HRA, Housing Revenue Account and the Dedicated Schools Grant. So the ambitions of this report is obviously setting out the key challenges for the Council, the key risks, achievements that we see in Appendix A, together with the first time bringing in the corporate core performance indicators and also mitigation plans. So aside from that, it does actually try to give you more information, try to make the data transparency if we try to move towards providing more information for our residents to understand our financial data. Otherwise, I'm happy to move to the recommendations as set out in section 3 of the report.
I'd now like to invite member debate from the floor. Councillor Cheatley.
Whilst I note that we are forecasting a pressure in the second quarter finance activity dashboard for the General Fund, this reflects the increasing financial challenges that local government is facing around social care for adults and children, together with significant demand around SEND provision and home-to-school transport. I'm confident that officers will continue to seek mitigations to provide efficiencies to offset in-year forecast overspends. However, I acknowledge that there may be circumstances where the Council's contingency budget may be used to support unforeseen expenditure. Residents can be reassured that Northamptonshire Council remains committed to transparency, efficiency and financial responsibility. We will continue to work towards a balanced outturn by year end, protecting essential frontline services while embedding long-term reforms to make our budgets sustainable for the years ahead. The report for the second quarter now includes the core performance indicators, together with the financial data for the first time, bringing together all financial information in a format which is easier to follow and understand, making it more accessible and transparent. This will help residents to understand what the key risks, the challenges, the achievements and proposed mitigations are across the council, highlighting and promoting the enormous amount of activities and work that is carried out on a daily basis by officers on behalf of residents. As Member for Finance, I will ensure regular reporting to both the Executive and the Corporate Scrutiny Committee so that members and the public can track progress openly. The message is clear. This council is not complacent, but is in control of its finances and determined to live within its means. I'm happy to support the recommendations as set out in this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we go into Councillor Elizabeth Wright, could you? Are you likely to be? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So I want to briefly comment on the position of the high needs block, which, as noted in the report, is showing an overspend. This continues to be a significant pressure for Northamptonshire, as it is for many local authorities across the country. This overspend is largely driven by increasing demand for specialist provision, education, health and care plans, and the wider support needed to meet the needs of children we send. While we are working hard to increase local provision and reduce reliance on more costly out-of-county placements, it's clear that the funding allocated through the current national formula is no longer sufficient. That said, I want to assure members that we are not simply accepting this trajectory. Officers are developing a robust high needs recovery plan which will align closely with our SEND strategy. The plan will include not just control measures but also a focus on early intervention, improving exclusive and practice in mainstream schools and expanding our provision to bring more children closer to home. It is also important that we continue to press government for fairer funding, as this situation is not unique to Northamptonshire. We will continue to work closely with schools, partners and families to deliver the best outcomes we can, despite the financial constraints. I support the report's recommendations and welcome the continued transparency on this important issue.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Chris McGiffin.
I'll be very swift. Part of our exposure is 1.584 million overspend on home to school transport, or what we now call travel to school transport. There is a substantial amount of work taking place behind the scenes, including an audit of our providers and the algorithm that is calculated to determine which school and how far the provision of this transport is. Suffice to say that over the next 2 months, George? Yes, indeed. Work in the next 2 months with specialist external consultants will take us to a place where we believe that we can substantially reduce our exposure to this because, again, as Councillor Wright suggested, the formula is such that we're never going to get the funding that actually covers the demand for our services. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's where we will leave it, and apologies for trying to join this all together with the clock. But we're nearly there. So, members, ladies and gentlemen, and all those viewing on live stream, it is approaching 11 o'clock, and we shall now pause our business to remember and honour all those who served and sacrificed in times of war and conflict, as well as those who continue to serve for the cause of peace. Their courage and selflessness have secured the freedoms we enjoy today. And as a mark of respect and reflection, we will now observe the last post, followed by 2 minutes of silence. Please stand if you are able. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Thank you. As we conclude this act of remembrance, let us carry forward the memory of those who gave their lives and those who continue to serve. May their sacrifice inspire us to work for peace and unity in our world. We will continue with the order of business. Thank you. Did we have a mover and seconder for the finance report? Councillor Cheatley to move, Councillor McGiffin to second. Well, members, the recommendations are set out on pages 64 and 65 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show of those in favour?
That is unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, David. Right, agenda item 7, the Performance Indicator Report 2025-2026, period 6, September Q2. I'd now like to invite Claire Edwards back to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this report brings together all the performance indicators for the Council. As we've just heard, the core indicators are now included within the finance report previously reported on. We also have within this report shown in Appendix B the service indicators and organisational health indicators in Appendix C. So this is providing you with an update of the travel of direction as at Q2, and I'm happy to move to the recommendations as set out in Section 3.
Members to debate. Councillor Cheatley.
The performance report holds a significant number of indicators which highlight the direction of travel across the whole council. As the report shows, we monitor our performance across 140 indicators, split between core KPIs as shown in the Finance and Activity Dashboard, Appendix A, the service KPIs in Appendix B, and organisational KPIs in Appendix C, of which 66% are either within tolerance or exceeding target. There is continuing work taking place across the Council to maintain standards and provides a transparent reflection of areas where we still need to improve. I am happy to support the recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. I just wish to commend this report and thank officers for all the work that they're continually doing to make sure that this council runs efficiently and looks after our communities.
Thank you very much for that. So it's been moved by Councillor Cheatley, seconded by Councillor O'Hara. The recommendations are set out on page 198 of the agenda pack. Please may I have a show of those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So we move on to agenda item 8, the Local Council Tax Support Scheme 2026-2027. Back over to you, Claire, for presentation of this report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an annual report that allows Executive to review the Council Tax Support Scheme and consideration of the proposal that is set out in the report to remain the scheme at the 25% level. It is recommended through this report and proposed that this will be considered by full Council on the 11th of December. Therefore, I'm happy to move to the recommendations as set out in section 3 of the report.
Thank you. Open for debate. Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very supportive of this report as it clearly looks to continue to support those on low income. It's stated that this gives us the opportunity each year to review and ensure that as a council we are saying a scheme this is not only affordable for the council but more importantly is affordable for the residents. The council makes every effort to ensure that this scheme benefits the most in need and offers support for those who may not be eligible through the social inclusion team, who can provide support not only around council tax, but also help in such areas as discretionary housing payment applications, personal independent payment applications, utilities, and general money and debt advice. And I'd just like to put on record my thanks to that team because they do a fantastic job in supporting our residents and helping them. And I hope that more residents do come forward and ask for that support because times are tough and we do provide an excellent service in that area. I note the comments raised by corporate scrutiny in ensuring that we offer a scheme which is affordable and the proposal to review the scheme activity after 6 months in the next financial year. I'm happy to support the recommendations as set out in this report, Chair.
Thank you. Well, as a council, I am keen to ensure that we provide support to our residents who are the most vulnerable by ensuring that we offer a council tax support scheme which is affordable. I'm confident that the officers will continue to seek mitigations to provide efficiencies to offset in-year forecast overspends. However, I acknowledge that there may be circumstances where the council's contingency budget may be used to support unforeseen expenditure. The report for Q2 now includes the core performance indicators together with the financial data for the first time, bringing together all financial information in a format which is easier to follow and understand, making it more accessible and transparent. This will help residents to understand what the key risks, challenges, achievements and proposed mitigations are across the council, highlighting and promoting the enormous amount of activities and work that is carried out on a daily basis by officers on behalf of our residents. I'm happy to support the recommendations as set out in this report. So the item has been moved by Councillor O'Hara. I'm delighted to second. The recommendations are set out on page 224 of the report. Please may I have a show of hands for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you for that, David. So now we come to another finance report, item 9, the council tax premiums, second homes and long-term empty properties report. Back over to you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. So this report considers two items. So the first one is to consider a proposal to amend the time a property is empty from 2 years to 1 year, which will be proposed, if accepted, will be commencing in April 2026. The second part of the report is to consider a 12-month consultation to apply council tax premium on second homes. These proposals, as set out in the recommendations in the report, will be considered by full council on the 11th of December, and I'm happy to move to the report's recommendations set out in section 3.
Thank you. I'd like to invite debate from members. Councillor Brian Bennyworth.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to propose both recommendations from this report, and in particular for the following reasons: that these proposals help tackle housing shortages by encouraging homeowners to bring unused properties back into residential use more quickly. It helps increase the availability of housing stock and therefore reduces the need for new housing developments. It improves the appearance and safety of our neighbourhoods, helps to reduce vandalism and antisocial behaviour, and it supports a more vibrant and thriving community. So for those reasons, I'm happy to propose this report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second this initiative. I think it's imperative that we make sure that we have homes that are fit to live in, and that includes our empty homes, because it provides a home for people. We have so many people that are living on the streets or living in property that really isn't fit for purpose. As my colleague has already said, it stops antisocial behaviour and vandalism, and it also helps complete the street scene. So I think it's imperative that we do this and help improve our neighbourhoods for all our communities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members? Councillor Chris McGiffin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a very swift point, notwithstanding the points made by Councillor Bennyworth and O'Hara. A council that is facing substantial financial challenges have very few levers to pull. This is one of them. It is undertaken by many of our sister councils, and we should do the same. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Well, members, the recommendations are set out on page 234 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show of those in favour?
That's 8 in favour, Chair. Councillor Harrison was out of the room while the report was discussed, so he's abstaining, and Councillor Wilcox isn't here, so 8 in favour, none against.
Thanks. It was always going to be a long meeting. Thank you for that, members. So we move on then to agenda item 10, the pension policy update, salary sacrifice scheme. Back over to you, Claire, for presentation of this report.
Thank you, Chair. So as part of reviewing our benefit offers to our employees, it was identified that we want to obviously ensure to attract and retain staff, and we want to ensure that we also promote financial well-being. So in our ability to be able to do so, this report proposes a change and amendment to the pension policy to allow us to explore the possibility of offering our employees a salary sacrifice scheme. I'm therefore happy to go to the recommendations as set out in section 3.
Thank you for that. Well, I'll open up for member debate from the floor. Over to Councillor Eddie MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the changes proposed in this report to enable staff to access a pension salary sacrifice scheme, together with the other employee benefits that Northamptonshire Council already offers. This will enable staff to gain support and education around their pensions, and most importantly, it provides an accessible and low-risk scheme. I am happy to support the recommendations as set out in this report.
Thank you for that. Over to Councillor Chris McGiffin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Notwithstanding the fact that the budget on the 30th of November may render this actually untenable, I want to emphasise that there is no cost to the council or the council taxpayer. This is merely a clever way of being able to redirect the costs of this without adding to them and giving our employees a larger and a more lucrative benefit. I second the proposal.
Looking round for any other members wish to speak. Well, we have a proposer and a seconder for the recommendations in the report that are set out on page 246. Please may I have a show of those in favour?
That's 9 in favour, Chair, and 1 out of the room.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on then to agenda item 11, which is the Northamptonshire Cemetery Regulations. I would like to invite George Candler, Executive Director for Place and Economy, to introduce this report. Over to you, George.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everyone. This report proposes the application of a single set of cemetery regulations to the 13 working cemeteries owned and managed by Northamptonshire Council, and those draft regulations are set out in Appendix A of the report. The report also highlights the proposals with regards to the depth of graves, moving from double depth to single depth, and finally covers the opening and closing times, specifically of Wellingborough cemeteries, and bringing those into the same opening and closing times for those that we operate in Corby and Kettering. The report also highlights the consultation that we undertook during August and September and the outcomes of that consultation, as well as the views from scrutiny when it was taken to place and environment scrutiny. I therefore draw members' attention to the recommendations at 3.1 for the reasons detailed at 3.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, George. I'd now like to invite member debate from the floor. Over to Councillor Kirk Harrison.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, George, for the thorough and concise introduction, stealing some of my thunder, I have to say. As George rightly points out, this is a report that proposes a single set of cemetery regulations, bringing all 13 cemeteries in Northants under the same regulations. We're currently operating under 4 different sets of rules, which we inherited from former councils. The new regulations are a clear, modern framework. They standardise memorial sizes and address safety concerns, as well as the issues that George has highlighted. These probably include unstable headstones. They also, as George points out, set consistent opening hours across the area. The consultation itself, there was 140 responses, which I actually thought was quite decent for subject matter such as this. The majority of consultation responses were in favour of the changes. Pleased to say that at Scrutiny Committee, the Place and Economy Scrutiny Committee, it received unanimous support for the recommendations. And I believe that's testament to the hard work and the commitment of our officers. I'd particularly like to single out Sam Diamond and Jane Blanchard in Bereavement Services for their really sterling work. That's all I have to say on the matter for the time being, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members wish to speak on this? Well, can I just say that I really welcome the standardisation of the opening hours. We are one council, and we do know how important it is for people to visit their lost ones at Christmas time, at the time of anniversaries and birthdays, etc. So I'm delighted to second this report. The recommendations are set out on page 254 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show of those in favour?
That's 9 in favour, Chair, and 1 abstaining because they weren't in the room for the report. Thank you.
And bear in mind, I think it's time we had a formal break, so can we reconvene in about 10 minutes, if that's okay with everybody? Thank you ever so much. Thank you, everybody. We move on then to agenda item 12, the future fleet strategy and contract procurement. I'd like to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your statement.
Thank you very much. Chair, members, let's call this what is the biggest single operational renewal the Council will undertake before 2027, and the one that will decide whether the bins get emptied, the housing repairs get done and the streets stay clean. We're being asked tonight to back a procurement that locks in the shape of Northamptonshire's fleet for the next decade. And while the paper is strong on mechanics, it raises two big questions which it cannot dodge. First, affordability. Second, credibility on carbon. Financially, the numbers don't lie. Leasing the whole fleet in one hit will blow a hole in the revenue budget unless the medium-term financial plan absorbs it now. The report admits that cost pressures are inevitable. So let's see the mitigation plan before we sign off. Value for money isn't just about the cheapest van, it's about the sustainability of the budget behind it. Environmentally, the recommendations to stay with the internal combustion vehicles and rely on HVO fuel is a pragmatic move, but it's not a long-term solution, it's a holding platform. It will want to hit our own carbon targets. We need clear bridge from this interim HVO strategy to general electrification. Otherwise, we'll be back here in 2030 having the same debate, only with higher prices and stricter emission rules. The decarbonation study in Appendix A sets out the roadmap, but this report quietly parks it because the infrastructure bill looks scary. Let's be honest, £3 million for charges is cheaper than pretending diesel with a green label gets us to net zero. The Council should explore phased EV pilots in high-use depots where infrastructure already exists, proving the model rather than shelving it. Finally, there's one operational reality check before we buy or lease anything. We need a full fleet rationalisation review. 388 vehicles is a huge footprint. They are all essential, or could shared use, smarter scheduling and telematics reduce the need? Every van we don't procure is money we can reinvest in people and services. So yes, we must authorise procurement to avoid a cliff edge in 2027, but executive should condition approval on three things: cost-neutral plan within the medium-term financial plan, a clear decarbonisation timeline beyond HVO, and a cross-directional review to shrink and modernise the
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. I'd now like to invite George Candler, Executive Director for Place and Economy, to introduce this report. Over to you, George.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report, members, is to authorise the commencement of the necessary procurement process in relation to the Council's operational fleet and outlines specifically 247 leased and 93 owned vehicles to ensure that we have continuation of service provision post-September 2027 when the current leasing arrangements for these vehicles comes to an end. And the approach will include purchase or lease, as well as the merits of internal combustion engine, abbreviated to ICE, versus electric vehicles, as detailed within the report. The lease and hire agreements at the moment are covered by two main contracts, one running through to 2027, hence this report, and the other to 2030-31, and the current costs for each of these are detailed at 4.7 within the report. The pros and cons of leasing are detailed in 5.4 to 5.7, and similarly the same is covered for the purchase of fleet further down within the report at 5.8. All options have been explored and considered, and these are detailed in 5.9 through to 5.28 within the report. I therefore refer members to recommendations at 3.1 for the reasons at 3.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. I'd now like to invite member debate from the floor. Members, Councillor Ken Harrington.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make it absolutely clear at this point that we will not forget our environmental ambitions and responsibilities. In fact, we remain committed to reducing our carbon footprint where it is financially viable. My own choice is leasing. Having spent 41 years in the motor industry, and maintenance is usually and can be built into a leasing agreement, and therefore, with an outright purchase scheme, not only would we have a large upfront capital outlay, but would need to have our own maintenance facilities as well, such as possible workshops, mechanics, etc. Also with leasing, the leasing companies have obligations, such as providing alternative vehicles should a vehicle go down. Whereas with ownership, we are simply without a vehicle. The options are do nothing. Well, that is not really a responsible option. Option one really is non-existent. So the only credible and overall cost-effective way forward is such that we use leasing, and we also use fuel that we have in stock. I have a job saying this, hydrogenated vegetable oil, otherwise known as HVO. But HVO fuel would be for us the most cost-effective way forward at present. Not long-term, and I know it's been said it's not a long-term solution, and possibly it's not, but at present it would be the cost-effective way forward. And we have plenty of our own stocks already. Electric vehicles at present would prove to be too expensive. And I therefore move that we move forward with the control procurement as soon as is possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Chris McGiffin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Harrington. At the executive meeting where this was debated previously, I challenged the presenter, having a background much like Councillor Harrington in the industry. If we have 247 vehicles that are leased, can we extend the lease? I learned that the lease has already been extended to its maximum. I then learned that the huge proportion of these vehicles, but not all of them, are beyond economical maintenance. Therefore, there is an obligation both formally, because of the lease agreement, and practically, to replace these 247 as a principle. Having said that, within that, some of those vehicles have had a lighter life than others, and to some extent we have some ability to retain them by agreement with the leasing company. Same goes for the owned vehicles. A good number of these are beyond economical repair and require replacement there at the end of their useful life. But an element of them can be retained. The most effective carbon producing vehicle is one you don't have to replace. That will form part of this solution. And I just want to underscore the point that George made, and that is, this is a two-stage process. We're at the very beginning of the very first part of the first phase, and all aspects will be considered, not least of which will be our carbon commitment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other members wish to speak? Well, I'm going to say a bit on this one, actually, because I can never work out which stories and which reports take off on social media. But this one actually did. Yeah, it got quite a bit of traction, no pun intended, by the way. And there was even suggestions that our maintenance staff, our housing team, should use bikes. Well, good luck on that one, because I dread to think what would happen if you were moving 7 pieces of skirting board or a bath from Kettering to Warmington. And bear in mind, we have 400 square miles to cover. Sometimes you get some strange feedbacks on social media, but thanks for that, members. Anybody else wish to make a comment? We have a mover and a seconder, and the recommendations are set out on page 314 of the agenda pack. Please may I have a show for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. And so we move on to agenda item 13, the Travellers' Temporary Stopping Site Update Report. I'd now like to invite Councillor Joe Garner to address the meeting. Councillor Garner, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your address.
I would like to start on a very personal note. I am fully aware through personal experience what it is like to come from an often demonised community. As the son of a Maltese immigrant, I know that the reputation of the Maltese immigrant community in post-war London was often not a particularly very good one. So I'm certainly not unsympathetic to the traveller community. There are instances around the country where these sites do work fairly well within the communities within which they sit. There are sound legal reasons why NNC need to provide such a site within their council boundary, and I fully understand that. However, there is a strong feeling locally within my ward, amongst both residents and town and parish councils, that the planning process is not something that is undertaken in partnership with them, not something that is undertaken for their benefit, but something which is done to them. It is absolutely critical that residents and town and parish councils feel that they are being listened to and involved in the planning process. So if this proposal is passed by the executive today, I ask that the council take on board my observations. It is important to make clear that whatever today's decision is, it is neither a granting nor a refusal of planning permission. That is the jurisdiction of the planning committee. Is the General Corners site appropriate for this proposed development? My primary concern is the potential issues over the established right of way enjoyed by Woodford House Estate, whose land abuts and surrounds General's Corner. Potential interference with this right of way may possibly be opening the council up to a lengthy and costly legal dispute, which has not been factored into the costings for this project. Also, Woodford House Estate regularly uses this right of way to move large pieces of farming equipment, both night and day. And this opens up serious potential health and safety concerns with the members of the travelling community.
30 seconds, Joe.
This may very well lead insurance companies to consider the site an uninsurable risk for public liability purposes. The council would then be taking on the hugely risky endeavour of self-insuring the site for public liability purposes. Woodford House Estate have also raised serious safety concerns with regards to access to and egress from the site.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Joe, for that
Thank you,
contribution. I'd now like to invite Councillor David Brackenbury to address the meeting. Councillor Brackenbury, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your address.
Well, thank you very much, Chair, and it's just about good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Joe, for your contribution in this slightly vexed issue. As many members will remember, when this matter came up previously, there were indeed a large number of objectors against the construction of a travellers' stopping site elsewhere in the Northamptonshire area. But I completely note that the common theme of all the objections that I've received was that of a lack of consultation and a lack of communication, and the feeling, it's a perception, but there is a genuine feeling that it's already a done deal. I exhort everybody who's involved, and both Joe and myself and Wendy have had conversations with the portfolio holder on this, to make sure that consultation is real and meaningful. As Joe observed, no one likes anything being done to them. It is obvious to point out that a full planning process would have to go through for the establishment of a travellers' stopping site anywhere in Northamptonshire. And this is not that planning process. Indeed, I do sit on the planning committee, and I will keep an open mind as to any proposals that are brought forward. It is, of course, however, important that the consultation that surrounds the planning process is genuinely taken into consideration as to whether this site or any other might be suitable. There are advantages for a travellers' stopping site. If you have a travellers' stopping site, it can mean that an unauthorised encampment may be directed to the stopping site, or they will be asked to leave the area and not return. So if we do establish a travellers' stopping site, there are clear advantages. And of course, it is helpful to the travelling communities, many of whom are transient and are genuinely passing through the area. But my last point, Chair, is if a travellers' stopping site is established anywhere in Northamptonshire, it is crucial that a travellers' stopping site is managed properly, and that the regulations of that travellers' stopping site are both understood and enforced. That will give the maximum benefit for those who are using the stopping site, for the council officers and the Gypsy and Travel units who have to administer it, and of course for residents who are affected in the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, David. I'd now like to invite Councillor Jim Hakewell to address the meeting. Jim, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, once again, last time to speak, and taking note of brevity. It's quite reassuring to note that this report talks about consultation, and you and I, Chairman, will remember the last administration where that really wasn't the case for Rothwell. So I'm glad that some are converted to the idea that it should be fully consulted upon. This provision clearly always is going to be controversial. Rothwell Green Space was always a strange location with the topography completely unsuited to building development of any kind. It is a treasured and unmanaged space that has been left alone to grow wild, full of wildlife. Rothwell treasures the fact that this green space is on their doorstep. I hope that there can be a dialogue about making a secure future for this green space between NNC and perhaps Rothwell Town Council, so that the threat of development of any form can be taken away and people in Rothwell can continue to treasure this particular area. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Jim. I'd now like to ask George Kander, Executive Director of Place and Economy, to introduce this report. George.
Thank you, Leader. So this report provides an update on the work that has been undertaken by officers on a travellers' temporary stopping site, including a further review of available options open to us. Just by way of brief background, you'll see in the executive summary that this particular piece of work began back in the summer of 2022, when a site was first explored as part of a funding bid to the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. There does still remain a strategic need for a temporary stopping place within North Northamptonshire, and that is currently demonstrated through our current 2019 Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment, which is currently being updated as part of the local plan. You'll also note in the report that a report was previously taken to the Executive in December 2023, setting out the costs and benefits providing such a site at Junction 3 off the A14 at a budget of 1.3 million. Therefore, this report that you have in front of you this morning provides an update on the work since that particular report, to review all land opportunities, and as you'll see, is coming forward with a proposal for land off Junction 11 of the A14, close to the village of Woodford at General's Corner, and that proposal is made on the basis of policy need as well as value for money. The report highlights in some detail the history. It highlights the project to be considered, the budget, as well as the demand that North Northamptonshire has encountered with regards to unauthorised encampments here in North Northamptonshire. The recommendations are detailed at 3.1 and the reasons for those are detailed at 3.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. I would now like then to open up this for discussion and debate. Over to Councillor Kirk Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start off, if I may, by just addressing the fact that there is likely to be and already local opposition to this. I realise that and I accept it, I acknowledge it, and I will do everything I can to mitigate every concern that's been raised. A number of the speakers have already pointed to that. There's already been a lot of feedback provided from town and parish councils within the local area, and I'm very mindful of it. But it's important to remember that there's currently no way for us to utilise our powers under Section 62 of the the Criminal Justice Act. We're currently using Section 77, which are inappropriate, don't enable us to move unauthorised encampments on with any speed at all. As the report mentions, the Rothwell site that was put forward has subsequently been deemed unsuitable, due largely, as Councillor Hakewell points out, to the topography, the cost of the groundworks, the layout, need for drainage, and the ecological considerations. General's Corner, on the other hand, is owned and controlled by the council, currently operating as a chipping storage. It's to a large extent flat, and considerably flatter than Rothwell. It's predominantly hard standing and, as the report suggests, would be incredibly cheap on the scale of things to develop into a stopping site, certainly in comparison to Rothwell anyway. It remains the only suitable option that the council has in terms of sites that it controls and owns. The site that's being put forward at the moment is very much a scaled back version of the site that was produced for Rothwell. There will be provision of running water. There will be security and barriers, so to ultimately target hardening. And in terms of the water wastage, that will be for the travellers and any occupants of the site when and if they arrive, and they will be in the shape of portaloos, and they will be temporary. This is a temporary site. In fact, there's a degree of anticipation that it's unlikely to be used very often, if at all. So you might think, well, why are we spending the money? Well, really, we're spending the money to enable us to utilise our Section 62 powers. Those powers give the police, rather, the ability to tell anybody in an unauthorised encampment to go to the site, and in doing so, pay £120 per week per pitch, plus a security deposit of £250 to cover any damage up front. Or, if they refuse to do so, they must leave the county and not return within 12 months. That's really, really important. We don't currently have those powers. We're currently dealing with unauthorised encampments. They're very much on the rise since we've come out of the COVID pandemic, and they're expensive. They're time-consuming, and the Northants Traveller Unit, whilst it does an exceptional job of dealing with the occupants of those sites, do have their hands full. This will remove that threat. Now, in speaking to a local parish council last night, there were a number of concerns raised. I've been able to distill those and give them some thoughts. Of primary concern, in fact, they're all of primary concern, so I'm not going to try and put them into any sort of hierarchy. Antisocial behaviour and crime. Yes, we all know that this can be associated with the Gypsy and Traveller community, but having a site that is controlled and operated, maintained by us, will give us the opportunity to better manage any occurrences of antisocial behaviour and crime, because it'll be taking place in the one location. Another concern was raised, or a number of concerns were raised, regarding the likelihood of this site developing into a permanent one in years to come. As anybody who's read the report will notice, in the recommendations, there is a specific recommendation, C, that this be progressed as a temporary site, and that it will always be a temporary site. It's not designed with the facilities of any permanent site. It will very much be a stopping site to give us those Section 62 powers. I can provide assurance over that. Another concern is that the location is an attractive destination for travellers. Well, this isn't something that you go to after having booked in for your holidays. This is as a means of dealing with unauthorised encampments as they pass through the county. They will be allowed on the site for no more than 28 days, and we very much seek to enforce that. More concerns that there are more appropriate sites. Well, I did mention earlier this is the only suitable site that has been brought forward by our officers and is included in the recommendation for that very reason. Now, if there are sites that we're currently unaware of that aren't in the control or ownership of the council, well, of course they will be considered. But for the time being, this will be our preferred site if this decision is approved today. Another concern was to do with the cost, that this is ultimately a waste of money, because why would you sink £1.3 million into a site that's going to remain empty? Well, the point of it remaining empty, and we very much hope it does, is that people will choose, rather than to go to the travellers' site, to actually pass through the county and leave, not return for 12 months. That's very much the principle behind this site. It's not a done deal. This is very much up for consideration, and this is the start of a very long process that will hopefully allow us to reduce unauthorised encampments going forward. A further concern, and one that I wasn't sure whether to speak about today, was the ability or willingness of the police to enforce the law. Yes, the law is very clear under section 62, but will the police enforce it? Well, I can't speak for the police, clearly. But what I can say is that part of our corporate plan that we approved this morning is that we work in conjunction with all other agencies, including the police, and we will certainly be working with them going forward. We already work with them on a daily basis as part of the Northamptonshire Traveller Unit. We do have a good relationship with the police, and personally I have every confidence in their ability to move unauthorised encampments on under this legislation. It's really important to remember what our recommendations are here. The recommendations are not, as has been already said, to move forward with the planning application yet. It's also not an approval of a planning application. Bulldozers and diggers are not going in tomorrow morning. The recommendations are to progress with the site, that preferred site be General's Corner, although that may change, remove the Rothwell site from consideration, and progress this as I've said before, an emergency site. That underlines our commitment to use this solely as a temporary site. The next steps are considerable. There will be a wide and in-depth public consultation which takes in views from the local community and anyone affected by this. We will consider those views very, very carefully. In particular, any views that represent a material planning consideration that may prevent a planning application being successful will be taken into account and be taken very seriously. Also to be taken into account will be alternative sites brought forward that we may not already know about that are not in the ownership of the council. Assuming nothing comes forward, assuming that consultation gives us belief that there is sufficient support behind this, then it will move forward to a planning process. That planning process will be robust, will consider environmental factors, infrastructure and highways considerations, and will fully test our proposal. The bottom line, I'm afraid, is that North Northants needs a stopping site. We need those Section 62 powers. We need to provide safe passage for gypsy and traveller encampments that are passing through to prevent unauthorised encampments going forward, and to obviously reduce the impact that those have on the wider NNC community. I'm very pleased to propose this report and look forward to the next steps. Many thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Harrison. Any other members wish to speak? Well, I'm going to then. So, as I've said before, this administration, this executive will take the decisions, often the tough decisions that the previous administration failed to do. As Councillor Harrison has said, there will be widespread consultation on this, and we urge everybody to take part in that consultation. And maybe those people can also then lobby central government for a change of legislation to help councils such as Northamptonshire Council and in that regard protect our residents, our rural communities and our beautiful countryside. Happy to second. Members, we have the recommendations set out on page 425 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show of those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. And so we move to agenda item 14, the Great Addington Neighbourhood Plan. I'd like to invite Councillor David Brackenbury back to address the meeting. David, you have a maximum of 3 minutes.
Many thanks, Chair. And again, as colleagues who may have remembered some time ago, when neighbourhood plans were coming up to being made, I just want to make the point that it is excellent to see another neighbourhood plan coming before executive for consideration. They really are community-led documents. that give the community's perspective on how they feel development should be carried forward in their own areas. So it's, as neighbourhood plans once made are part of the local development scheme and are part of the planning process, and due weight has to be applied to neighbourhood plans in that context. So, Chair, I would just like to welcome this paper, to thank all the residents and the parish council and all other stakeholders who have contributed to the formulation of this neighbourhood plan, and to endorse the whole process and encourage other communities who may not yet have gone to the process of putting neighbourhood plans together to strongly consider it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Hear, hear. I'd now like to invite George Candler, Executive Director of Place and Economy, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. This report is to propose the making of the Great Addington Neighbourhood Plan as part of the Statutory Development Plan, following an independent examination and positive outcome from the referendum. The Great Addington Neighbourhood Plan, which is attached at Appendix A, has been prepared by Great Addington Parish Council Steering Group and, I'm pleased to say, provides a clear understanding of the vision of the local community within the parish with regards to future aspirations. This was endorsed by a clear majority of voting residents in favour of making the plan on the day of the referendum, which was the 9th of October 2025. Therefore, I move the recommendations at 3.1 for the reasons at 3.2. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, George. I'd now like to open it up to member debate. Councillor O'Hara.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to confirm and say that I'm very happy to propose the adoption of this well-constructed plan and to say thank you to all involved. It's a real community effort, and it's nice to see another plan coming forward. I'd also like to say thank you to our officers for all their input and all their help in bringing this forward to us, and it's actually encouraging to see that more and more people are getting involved within our planning process to actually bring forward plans which, as you say, do bring due weight within that planning process. So I'd like to recommend that we adopt this as outlined at 3.1, 3.2 and 3.3. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members wish to speak? Well, I will again then. And just say that neighbourhood plans dovetail with our corporate plan, very much so, and I also welcome them. So delighted to second this. The recommendations are set out on page 464 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. And so we move on to agenda item 15, the Adult Social Care Direct Payments Policy. I'd like to invite Victor James, but he doesn't seem to be here. So that is a bit disappointing. However, we move on. So I would therefore like and delighted to invite Lynn Buckingham to address the meeting. Lynn, you have a maximum of 3 minutes to make your address.
Thank you very much. Chair, members, when we talk about choice and control in adult social care, those words should mean something real, not just appear on a policy header. The direct payments policy before us still falls short of that promise. Right now, there's no real clear test for when a direct payment is offered or refused. Decisions rest on officer interpretation, which means outcomes dependent on who you speak to, not what your needs are. That's inconsistent and not compliant with the Care Act's requirement for transparency and outcomes-led planning. Support for people actually managing their own care is paper thin. The policy says support is available but never tells residents who provides it, what it covers or how it's funded. Managing payrolls, employment law and audits isn't something most families can take on overnight without a named support network Independence quickly turns into isolation. There is also no proper risk framework, no clear grading of high, medium or low risk cases, and no contingency plans for when personal assistance fail to show or agencies collapse. That's not a hypothetical. We've already seen what happens when vulnerable residents are left without backup. And let's be honest, the Equality Act implications are worrying. The policy assumes everyone can manage online banking and portals. That excludes people who are old or disabled or without digital access, the very people this service is meant to empower. So here's the ask. Introduce a transparent decision matrix so people know why a direct payment is granted or refused. Build a tiered risk and monitoring framework to protect both autonomy and safety. And fund and publish a support provider directory so residents can get help with payroll, recruitment and compliance before crisis hits. Direct payment should be a pathway to independence, not another bureaucratic hurdle. We owe it to residents in the spirit of Care Act to make the system fair, accessible and genuinely empowering. Let's put the direct back into direct payments, clear, accountable and centred on the person, not the paperwork. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Well, now I'd like to invite member debate from the floor. Members who wish to speak. Councillor Eddie MacDonald, Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Adults and Health Partnerships.
Cheers, thank you, Chair.
Chair, apologies. I think we need the report introducing first.
He's on the end.
I do apologise, Matthew. I'm trying to move on, but I sincerely apologise. Over to you to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Not at all. I thought I'd dodge that one. So this report seeks approval for our revised direct payments policy in adult social care. So direct payments do give people choice and control to manage their own care using funds provided by the council. A direct payment is an agreed personal budget amount that is paid directly to a person to enable them to commission their own care and support. So this updated policy ensures compliance with current legislation, strengthens financial monitoring and clarifies responsibilities, but crucially also the support that's available for people in receipt for direct payment, which includes a dedicated team within Northamptonshire Council as well. So I therefore draw members to the recommendations as detailed at 3.1 in the report on page 570 of the pack. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So now I'll pass over to Councillor Eddie MacDonald.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Matt. I would like to thank Amy Coley and her team for the work in compiling this report and for the excellent presentation there by Matt, even though it was called a bit flat-footed. As explained in the report, creating this policy is basically formalising present practice, basically in line with the Care Act 2014 and our statutory duty to provide direct payments. And for those who haven't caught on, basically a direct payment is an agreed personal budget amount paid directly to a user of adult social care services, enabling them to choose their own care services, thereby providing them choice and control over their care and support. The policy sets out how the Council interprets its duties and responsibilities in relation to direct payments where the Care Act allows its scope to do so. And the proposed direct payments policy will provide clarity to those using the adult social care and support, detailing how the Council will manage their payments and setting the expectations for those who receive a direct payment, so everybody knows where they stand. It was drafted in consultation with stakeholders, including residents, councillors, and most importantly, those in receipt of direct payments. This policy aligns with the outcomes identified in our adult social care strategy of 2024 to 29, and ensuring that residents have fulfilled lives and greater access to better quality adult social care. I fully support this policy.
Thank you very much for that. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor Brian Bennyworth.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I fully support the updated direct payments policy, which reflects our commitment to personalisation, independence and safeguarding. The policy provides clearer guidance for service users and staff, ensuring that direct payments are used appropriately and effectively. I welcome the strengthened monitoring and review mechanisms, which will help prevent misuse, whilst also supporting individuals to managing their care in a confident way. The inclusion of support for carers and the emphasis on flexibility in care arrangements is particularly important, I feel, especially as we seek to reduce reliance on formal care and promote more community-based solutions. I believe that this policy is a key enabler of our wider adult social care transformation and aligns with our draft corporate plan's focus on dignity, independence and prevention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I know all of you here believe in giving dignity and support to our elderly people in their latter years. So the recommendations are set out on page 570 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So now we move on to item 17, and that's the electoral services, printing and mailing contract procurement. Over to you, Camilla.
Thank you, Leader. Members, the existing contract was entered into in 2022 and expires on the 31st of March 2026. In anticipation of the expiry of the contract, our electoral services have reviewed and appraised the options available, which are outlined in the report, specifically at paragraphs 3.3. The preferred option is to undertake an open market process to award a short-term contract starting on the 1st of April 2026, ending on the 31st of March 2027. This meets the legal and procurement requirements, facilitating greater competition with other suppliers to bid for the contract. The proposed contract is to run until the 31st of March 2027, supports the plan for a whole-scale procurement exercise to consolidate all print, software and other digital electoral services in 2026-2027, thereby aligning all the contract end dates. The recommendations are set out at page 644 of the reports pack at paragraph 3.1, and I'll hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to members for debate. This has been discussed by the executive in some detail. The recommendations are clearly set down in the report. I'm delighted to move this. Can I see a seconder? Councillor Ken Harrington. Okay, well, the recommendations are shown on page 644 of the agenda pack. They've been moved and seconded. Please may I have a show for those in favour.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, we come to urgent items of business. I can confirm that I have received no requests to consider any urgent items of business at this meeting. So that concludes the business on the agenda. I'd like to thank those members, officers and the public who have been in attendance, including those who have watched this meeting, a quite poignant one, I would say, on our YouTube channel. I now declare this meeting closed. Thank you.